So welcome to another episode of Meet the Writers. This is a short form interview chat series with the poets and authors who have contributed writing to Structo 20. So today we're very lucky to be joined by Petra Hilgers. Hi Petra, thanks so much for taking the moment to have a chat.
Thank you for inviting me.
So you kindly agreed to kick off by reading the poem you have in the new issue. So go for it.
Someone else's books. Thoughts trapped between pages. Some people don't have a care where they leave their belongings. The other day, I found a wallet, thick as gilt, on the platform bench. There's identity theft and there's identity pollution. Little thoughts scatter across pages as dandelion parachutes take root in some dark corner of my mind, growing into a crash of canaries on the periphery of my clarity, until one day I wake up to rebellion.
Thanks very much. There's a lot in there for such a short poem.
Yeah, I think people keep telling me that my poems are very dense. I never thought about it, but yeah.
It's really nice because often when preparing an issue, especially Structo, because we have a vague schedule, which is we publish when we're kind of ready. We have a relatively long lead time in between selecting and publishing. It's beginning of August as we chat now. The submission period closed at the end of December. When I can't remember even when we sent the acceptance to you. It would be maybe a month or so after that.
Yeah, I thought quite shortly after the closing deadline.
So it's been a while since we accepted it. And yeah, there are a couple of lines in that have stayed with me completely, which is not always the case, even with poems or other bits of writing that I really like. It's just very there's a wittiness to it which I really appreciate without it being cloying. So that's always really enjoyable. Yeah, it's a very hard balance to strike. And it's why, especially in such a short, I can't remember how many lines it is. I have it on the other window, but it's a hard trick to pull off. So it's nice to see it done successfully.
Oh, thank you.
So in terms of your poetry writing, you say in your bio that you're greatly inspired by traveling and the quirks of bilingual life. Obviously, traveling is something that we don't want to talk about because that just makes everyone sad right now. But,
exactly.
You are bilingual. You're born in
I'm German.
Germany.
It's my mother language. Yeah.
So was this poem written in English?
Yeah. So it's quite interesting. I realized my actual, I'd say, starting to write poetry properly was when I really felt I landed in English enough. So for some reason, English has become a writing language much more than German ever has. So all my poetry is in English, although you always will find like some German words and phrases scattered in between there sometimes.
There are some very good German words though. If there's a word for something very unusual, it's either German or Japanese, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true actually.
It's a very handy thing. So in terms of writing more generally then, if you're writing something, you would naturally write in English at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long has that been?
How long has that been? At least 10 years, I'd say. Okay. But I think initially, I definitely went through a journey around feeling a bit like a fraud because I write in English, but it's not my mother language and I don't have an English literature degree. So I think I was for a long time really shy around it and kind of didn't even mention to anyone that was writing poetry. And at some point, the moment came when I really thought I actually really like this and I want to just know and get a bit more support to know that whether I'm confident with it and should continue. And so that's when a writing mentor, writing groups, etc. came into it. And then I realized with time that actually being bilingual is also an advantage. And I think I have a much richer repertoire of images to pick up. And you might know that living in the Netherlands as well with different languages, I've got a fantastic writing mentor, and she always encourages me to also really use sometimes when there is just a phrase that works, as you said so well in German, to just use it and just be much less worried about having to be perfect.
I'd like to come back to the writing mentor thing in a moment, but I was just imagining some of these German words which are, this long. And do you ever have any problems with line length with some of these conceptual words?
No, but I think
that's a kind of
I'm
joking
trying
question.
and I'm just trying to think. I tend not to, I think, use those really long words. I just like something short and sharp.
Snappy. So you mentioned a mentor there. Is that something you found important as you've kind of grown and been learning as a writer, as a poet?
Yeah, I definitely would say that in this case, I've been working with her for several years now. So, and I guess there's a point when you maybe know each other too well, I don't know. But I find it at the moment still really helpful because she understands my writing. And so when I sometimes really maybe am using language quite awkwardly, unknowingly, she can also help just checking what do I actually mean. And she's got really good background in form and technique, which I don't have. So it also helps me she's reining me in a bit with structure, which is quite a good challenge for me.
Yeah. Do you enjoy the restraints of structure when it comes to poetry, or is your approach generally let's see what form this poem takes?
Yes, yeah, and it's funny because as a person I'm super structured. And one of the few places where I'm not is my poetry. So it's quite funny. Omi Kemi, who's my writing mentor, always laughs about like that I'm just going so free reign and then just have to force the structure in, and it's just so the opposite of how I live.
So I wanted to mention this specifically on your website, which is very good, by the way. I mentioned before we started recording that you're one of the few poetry bloggers who genuinely is a poetry blogger, in that you post regularly and have done so for a while. But you also have a manifesto, which I'm always intrigued by seeing this kind of thing. Where did this come from? What prompted the manifesto?
That came at a time when I was actually thinking of closing my blog because I had been doing it for so long. And then I went through a phase where I was thinking, like, I don't actually have that many followers. What's the point? And I was kind of getting quite ready to close it. And at that time was also really questioning, what is my writing and what is it? Who is it for? What is it about? What form is it even? Is it poetry? Is it letter? Is it short story? And I just took myself on a little retreat. And somehow, I don't know why, I just really got into the idea of life writing, and I read a really interesting essay that's kind of much more memoir, and then I thought, actually we all have the right to write, and we all have the right to have as much art and creativity in our lives as we want. Nobody needs to have a degree or be born in a particular language. So it was almost more like making my claim is, yes, I'm initially German speaking, and no, I don't have a degree, and no, I don't write professional anything, and I have something to contribute. So, and I think more than anything, I did it for myself to just,
I think that's why it feels. I think that's why it feels true, or it feels kind of honest in the sense that it doesn't feel like it's been composed for other people, which is always nice. Which makes it often all the more important if it's something that you have thought about specifically to apply to your own writing or your own life in that sense. It's a very interesting one, and there's some good stuff on there. I'll link it below the video for those who want to have a look. It's a nice list of things, and I like the way it starts, which is not in order of priority, not a linear list of things. Oh, wiggly wobbly wacky tumbling out of my mind and heart, which I always appreciate. Very good. Right, I just have to get my questions back. There we go. Yeah, so in terms of, I'm just thinking about your kind of creative life more in general now, and how it approaches, how it kind of interfaces with your poetry. Some people might call themselves they write about landscape, or they write, they have something that they are fond of writing about. Do you find yourself drawn to anything in general, and have you found that's changed over the last few months, of what with one thing and another?
I don't, until recently, I wouldn't have said that I'm drawn to any particular subject, but my writing is definitely always inspired by things that happen in my real life. They're always somehow parts of them weave in. But I'd say the last few months, the lockdown in particular, made me realize, I think one thing that my writing actually often starts from is witnessing. And I felt that so strong with, you mentioned my blog, and it was actually the lockdown that really suddenly boosted my just joy in the blog again. It's just witnessing what's going on. I think I'm just by nature really curious, and when I travel, I always look and hear, and I love picking up snippets of conversations, and just like, I feel like I'm a bit of a sponge. I absorb a lot, and I feel like it's so easy with a lockdown, and I notice it myself, to just want to numb and just, it's quite just like just a bit of a dreary period to go through. We don't even know when it ends, but I then quite quickly realized it's also such a period of change that none of us has ever experienced in that scale before. I felt really suddenly I want to witness it, and the way to express that and kind of record that was then writing, and then the blog became just a spontaneous tool where I also for the first time was much less worried about it being finished. And so a lot of the poems are it's almost more a bit like a diary, and I was much less like, I write this, I edit it quite quickly, but I do edit it and then it goes out, and then I stop worrying about it being perfect.
That seems like a really, really nice place to leave it. So thanks again for taking the time to have a chat, and I wish you all the best.
Oh, thanks very much. Thanks so much for this conversation and for publishing my poem.
Oh, you're very welcome.